One, two, three, the lawn feed.
Welcome back to another episode of the Lawn Feed Podcast. Collectively, we are three dads with a strong passion for lawn care. We deliver everything lawn care that's simplified to you in an easy to listen way, in a space where all egos are left at the door, all experience levels are welcome, successes are celebrated, and there are no failures. They are only learning moments with the W. I'm Vince. Lawn Co, and alongside me is only Andrew tonight. Chris is doing some mow time makeovers, and he's got a little jammed up due to the weather. So, Andrew, thanks for joining me tonight.
Of course.
And we got another guest with us tonight. Tonight, we have a special guest. His name is Nick Tristani, who is a sales agronomist from Yara, North America. Yara is a fertilizer manufacturer globally. Yara's main focus is to be the leading crop nutrition solutions provider, specializing in nitrogen fertilizers and other industrial products for over 70 years. Nick, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Honored to be on the show.
It's going to be an awesome show this time. And also, while you're here, if you're listening on podcast or maybe you found us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We have a goal this spring of hitting 1,000 subscribers, and we are super close. I think we're 25 more to go.
I think it was 26 like an hour ago, so we'll call it 25
more to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, head on.
I'd love to be the guy to bring that over the hump here.
Yeah. Nick's going to be just watching it over the next couple of days.
And we will get into more about Nick here. And he's going to be giving us an incredible breakdown of different types of fertilizers, why certain fertilizers are better throughout the growing season, quick release versus slow release, and much, much more. But first, let's take a second to thank our sponsors, our friends over at Twin City Seed, for powering this season of the Lawn Feed Podcast, built on their reputation of superior service, accuracy, and sustainability with custom blending and packaging, high-performance products, and a team of dedicated experts. Twin City Seed is North American leader in giving DIYers the highest quality of premium and elite grass seeds for your next project. Save money on your grass seed through Father's Day by using code FATHER24 for 15% off your order. And on top of that, receive free shipping by pairing it with code FREESHIP24. Twin City Seed proudly serves all of North America. Check them out at twincityseed.com and twincityseed.ca.
Speaking of CA, we got a question in our Motown mailbag at the end of the show from someone in Canada.
Yes, we do.
So we'll get into that shortly. Nick, introduce yourself. Tell the folks who you are, how you got into doing what you're doing, and what do you do?
Well, thank you. Yeah. So I am the sales agronomist for the Northeast for Yara North America, specifically for turf and ornamental. My territory is from Baltimore all the way up to Maine. So true Northeast. Started in this lovely world of turf care in this business over 14 years ago. I started my journey on a golf course. I grew up playing golf, loved to play golf, and thought, I like to be outdoors. I grew up riding a lawnmower since I was 4, so why not marry the two together? My first job was at a small country club back in the Hazleton, Wilkes-Barre area. So cut my teeth there, just kind of running equipment, basics, get a little bit of spraying. I did go to Penn State for the 4-year degree.
We are.
Shout out class of 2014. Went for turfgrass science. Did my internship at Marion Golf Club for the 2013 U.S. Open. So got to experience championship golf. Graduated, came back, did another season summer after I graduated at Marion. Wasn't full-time quite yet, so my boss at the time had given me the opportunity to go to several places. I could have gone down to Florida or out west to California. I chose to go out west, and I spent 5 months at Riviera Country Club prepping for the tournament there that is now the Genesis Invitational. Back then it was the Northern Trust. Came back, was an assistant superintendent for a brief period, got married. Got married, and went a different route, wanted to try something a little different. So I went to commercial landscapes for Brightview Landscape Services. I worked for them for 3 years. Then I went into distribution sales. So to the lawn care professionals, I did those types of sales for 3 years. And just last week, I celebrated my 1-year anniversary with Yara.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Congrats.
Well, thank you. So kind of touched all facets: golf, distribution, lawn care, and now manufacturing. So,
And now you're on a DIY lawn care podcast.
and now I'm on the DIY. My circle is complete.
It's complete.
It is complete.
That's awesome. You threw in some cool wins in there. And speaking of wins, before we get back into some fertilizer, we always do a segment on Dad's wins and losses. And this time, Dad's Wins and Losses is sponsored by WaySafe Trailer Hitches. WaySafe has the only trailer hitches on the market with a built-in scale to measure your tongue weight, not the tongue in your mouth, but the tongue with your trailer. It's to ensure the safest towing experience possible when you and your family are traveling. Use code TLF15 at checkout to get 15% off of your order, and you can order at way-safe.com. Andrew, do you have a dad win and loss?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start with the loss. I've been wanting to tell you guys about this for a while. It's a couple weeks ago now. My son has like an infatuation with rocks. He collects rocks, small rocks, big rocks, brings them in the house when we don't want them, right? He always tries to bring some to bed with him, and we don't let him. Well, the other night, my wife was laying with my son. I got my daughter to go to sleep, and I headed out in the backyard. And as we do, we kind of putz around the yard to see if there's anything that you can just do. You know, it's nice to be outside this time of year. So I'm outside in the backyard putzing around, and all of a sudden, my daughter, who was asleep, comes flying out of the back door of the slider, and she's like, "Dad, Dad, Dad." I'm like, "This isn't good." And then my wife comes out, and everybody's out on the back deck all of a sudden, and it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, "What is happening?" Well, my son apparently snuck a small rock into bed with him, and he stuffed it up his nose.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so like at first you could actually see it like halfway up the nostril, and we're trying to look in there with flashlights and stuff, and he's crying, and he's trying to snort it up instead of blow it out, and all of a sudden we couldn't see it anymore. Well, my wife has one of those like tools. I think it's almost like a toothpick, but it's got like a light built into it. And she was able to get that up there and kind of like loosen it a little bit. And then we had him just blowing and blowing and blowing. And eventually we got it out. But we were literally calling people to come watch my daughter to go to the ER because that's where we thought we were going. And it turns out, it was a little pebble, just big enough to get into his nostril. So that was a nice evening. But I went back out into the yard after. He was fine. Yeah, all is well.
And pick up more
yeah,
rocks.
I'm gonna go back to my grass now. And then my win is my daughter graduates from kindergarten next week. So
Nice. It was a big win.
yeah, first year of doing the whole school thing, like legit school thing, not a preschool. So it's pretty excited. She's geek. She's doing really well, and we're proud of her. So that's my win.
Nice.
Yeah. But let's talk some fertilizers, shall we? As we know, not all fertilizers are created equal, which is something you probably learned when you quickly started out in your lawn care journey. There are many types of nitrogen sources, many types of iron, and some of which that are actually not even available to the plant. Fertilizers with a lot of fillers and much more. We might even get into some tips on developing a lawn program for yourselves. Nick, speaking of nitrogen sources, do they matter? What are some of the sources? And explain it like I'm brand new and I don't know anything, because I kind of don't.
Absolutely. So there's 3 essential forms of nitrogen. There's urea, there's ammonium or ammoniacal, and nitrate. And the way I try and explain this in the simplest terms is think of nitrate for the plant as straight cash, right? So you have cash easily dispensable for your needs. You can spend it on whatever you like. So when you put nitrate in front of a plant, it has easy access. 90% of that nitrate is going to be taken up by the plant and is available for the plant. Whereas you look at urea think of it as your job, right? So you put down urea, you go to your work, you go to your job, you clock in, you get your paycheck, which is subject to tax. So think of tax as volatility, right? So if you put down urea, some of that can go up into the air, just as some of our money does. We don't know where it goes, but it goes up into the air. And then that gets deposited into the bank. So think of going into the bank as your ammoniacal source. So now it's in the bank, but now you have to withdraw the money from the bank in order to get your cash. So it's a multi-step process. Ammoniacal, think of just you have cash laying around in your bank account already, but you still got to go to the ATM and withdraw it. Whereas if I give you straight nitrate, aka cash, it's readily available, readily there for dispensing at whatever you see fit. So those are the three forms. However, there are many sources of nitrogen. So if you're looking at a bag at your hardware store, or wherever you purchase your fertilizer, on the label, it should say derived from, and that's where you'll see derived from urea, derived from methylene urea, ammonium sulfate, polymer coated urea, polymer sulfur coated urea, biosolids, chicken, poultry. So there are numerous sources of nitrogen, but really three forms.
So this is a little off topic, but you brought up biosolids. What's your take on biosolids? Do you like them? Is there things that we should be cautious of using them?
That's a conspiracy theory rabbit hole question. No, biosolids are good.
Tinfoil hat. I got it around here somewhere.
Biosolids are a good source. They can be so biosolids would be a good filler. It's better than limestone rock, right? So when we talk about filler in a bag, those little pebbles you see is actually just finely crushed up limestone rock. So that can fit up your son's nostril. So do not go and spread a bunch of filler. That would be a reason to not spread filler or fertilizer containing a lot of filler. But biosolids are a good source. They're a good organic source for the microbial population. So your soils also need to eat food. They're a living organism. They need it. And they sequester a lot of the carbon in those organic sources. So they are good. However, biosolids, the source, those do matter. And sometimes if you want to go down a deep rabbit hole, you can look up PFAS. Are you familiar with PFAS?
Yeah. Are those forever chemicals or no?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
So a lot of the treatment, a lot of them aren't regulated. So biosolids have become a hot topic, especially in the Northeast, Maryland, New Jersey, especially in the New England. Did you lose power, Vince?
Yeah, my light went out. It's okay. You can still see me.
Yeah, so the New England market, the biosolids, actually, I believe in the state of Maine, you're not allowed to put any biosolids down. So if you're looking for an organic source, poultry would be one. That would be a viable option as well. There's pros and cons to both. They tend to be dusty because it is an organic material, so spreading them. Your wife may complain about your clothes when you come back into the house after you spread chicken, poultry, or biosolids. You may not smell very well, and you might get a separate cycle on the washer for your clothes, but there is benefit to them.
Well, she's always going to complain about something when you come in the house, and might as well be that, right?
Might as well be stinky.
Well, that's good stuff. Is there a type of nitrogen or fertilizer cool season folks should avoid when applying in the summer or spring?
Yeah, so it's going to vary on your species, on what you have. I'll back up. So like in the springtime, so we'll talk about anything that says derived from urea, right? So if we're going out with that springtime, early March, mid-March, soil temperatures are going to be cool. So that conversion from that process we talked about with urea, the colder the soil, the longer that's going to take, and the less of that's probably going to actually be nitrified during the process and available to the plant. So at 41, so let's say a great website where you can check your soil temperatures, if you're not familiar with, is Greencast, which is Yep. So if you go on Greencast, you can look at your soil temperatures. So 41 degrees, nitrification will take anywhere from 8 anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. So that means the urea that you put out very well may not be available for that long of a time. And a lot of it is just you're not going to see the response which you're looking for. But as temperatures start to increase, that nitrification process does decrease in time, so it happens more rapidly. It is dependent upon soil moisture as well. So if it's dry, you're going to have a delayed response. Whereas if you're using something like a Yara, I'm going to give a shout out to Yara here, but our
Absolutely.
sources on a product like our 22012 NK Green is ammonium nitrate. So over 50% of the nitrogen in NK Green is going to be nitrate. So again, we talked about an available form. Whatever, let's say you go out with 3/4 of a pound of N, over half of that, over 3.35, 4/10 of nitrogen is going to be readily available for your plant to take up immediately and cash money, start to green up quicker. But if you're handling like a bluegrass species, Kentucky bluegrass tends to be prone to summer patch, which you may or may not be battling if you have that in your lawn. And once those soil temps, again, good reference for that Greencast website, once they start to hit 65 degrees, that's where summer patch can start to inoculate in the soil. And it's more active during a higher pH. So nitrates tend to have a balanced pH or actually slightly increase the pH in the soil. Whereas something like an ammonium sulfate and even urea, once urea converts over during that process called hydrolysis, it's essentially ammoniacal and it'll acidify the soil. So if you're running a straight Kentucky bluegrass type lawn, keeping your pH down and using an acidifying fertilizer is going to help. Not going out with super large amounts of quick release if you're trying to battle summer patch or to help decrease the amount that's in there. It's not 100%. You're still probably going to need to spray a fungicide. But it is also important because summer patch is a root disease. It's important to get that fungicide down into the soil. So if you do a foliar application, make sure it gets watered in, or a granular. If you're buying any type of granular fungicide, make sure it gets watered in. But other than that, there's really not too many. It's more so more is not always better. You want to have a slow release portion perhaps, or you just don't want to go out with, typically I don't recommend over a half pound during the summertime of quickly available. But again, it depends on what your program is. Your program, there's so many factors and so many ways to do it. Are you going out monthly, biweekly, every 2 months? What's your budget? So it's definitely important to build that foundation and kind of get a premise as to what you're trying to accomplish and how many apps.
So you could still, I know a lot of people like to spoon feed, especially there's a lot of low cut turf folks in the DIY realm. And a lot of them will use something that's readily available, like AMS. Is that still, because you're only doing about 0.1, 0.2 pounds of nitrogen. Is there any recommendations for spoon feeding programs of what source you should be paying attention to?
Not necessarily, no. It just also depends on sources. So ammonium sulfate during the summertime, there's something called a salt index. So salt index just is kind of what it sounds like. It tells you how salty a fertilizer actually is. So what most of the time what happens is I'm going to get a little nerdy here. An ion concentration outside of the leaf blade. So what happens is it's actually a salt. So all fertilizers are salt. And what happens is when you overload that leaf, that grass blade, it'll actually suck moisture out of it. And that's where you get the tip burn from. You can also get it from sun scorching. So a droplet size, if your water droplet, if it stays on the leaf and it sits there, it acts like a magnifying glass and a scorch. And that's where you can also get some scorching. Urea, or even our product that we also have, Amidas, which is a homogeneous urea ammonium sulfate combination. That has a relatively low salt index. If you're spoon feeding via foliar, you can spoon feed via granular. You just have to make sure that the prills are small enough where you're going to get a nice distribution or an even distribution.
Now, a lot of people that have tried different granular fertilizers, um, maybe they're exploring different brands, different products. They may have realized that some fertilizers are very colorful. All the prills are different colors, and some other fertilizers they've used, they're all the same, and they're kind of just boring looking. Um, what is homogeneous, and like what are blended fertilizers, and what are the benefits of each of those?
Yeah, no, it's a
Andrew
great
likes the
question.
pretty fertilizers.
They're pretty to look at. My wife likes to look at them, but I couldn't care less, you know.
Yeah, so I like the non-boring, the all uniform ones, the plain ones.
Yeah.
Those tend to be the best. Again, so homogeneous means that all the nutrients are on one prill. So when you're looking at all those individual prills, so let's take for instance again that NK Green, that 2212. Every single prill in that bag is going to contain 22% nitrogen, 12% potassium. Our Turf Royale 21714, every single prill is going to contain nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, as well as sulfur. Whereas when you do these blends, which is again more so what you'll find in the stores, that's where you look at that derived from. You're going to see most likely those white prills are going to be urea most of the time. Any type of like bluish hue to it, that can be either a polymer coat or a sulfur coat or a methylene urea. If you look like you have little red prills in the bag, that's the potash. That's muriate of potash, most likely, if they're red. If they're gray, they're probably rocks. Again, we don't of the 14 essential plant nutrients, rocks is not one of them. So
No.
we don't like rocks here at Yara. We like just all food. We don't want a bunch of junk in the bag. So, but yeah, so that's what those different colors you're seeing. But so the more, think of it again from a novice standpoint. If you're looking at it, if you went to the grocery store and you looked at the ingredients on the back of a box of cereal and it was a laundry list long, would you rather buy that or one that only has 2 or 3 ingredients?
Andrew knows my answer.
Yeah, I do. So does Yara only make homogeneous granulars then?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't. Yeah. So our raw materials. So a finished product, a finished good is the NK Green, Turf Royale. We do produce also urea. We do produce ammonium sulfate, diammonium phosphate. So we produce the raw materials, which technically are homogeneous nutrients.
Gotcha.
So we don't do any blending. So the stuff that you're buying at the store is a blend and is blended by a plant somewhere.
Right.
So
a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And
correct.
That's how they
So
get
we
their
are the
numbers.
ones who provide the raw material for the blenders.
Okay.
And they're making their chef's, creation,
Right.
if you will.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So we mentioned a little bit on quick release. We mentioned a little bit on the slow release and the different nitrogen sources. Can you go into a little bit more detail on the quick and slow release fertilizers?
Yeah. What particularly were you thinking? Like in terms of benefits, where to use them?
Maybe both.
Yeah. So quick release, and this is also a misconception, is quick release. I guess I'll ask you guys, I'll quiz you guys. What do you think quick release in terms of release time over weeks or days? How long do you think quick release what do you think it lasts?
If I had to guess, probably a few days.
That's what I would go with. A couple days to a couple weeks.
So it's actually it's a misconception where it only lasts that long. You'll actually, if it's enough in the bag, again, if there's enough nutrients in the bag and it's not filler, like you can get, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks out of quick quote unquote quick release. So that is a misconception to think like, oh, I need to keep feeding. And now if you're spoon feeding, that's one thing, but if you're applying a larger sum at once, if you're going out with 3/4 of a pound of N at a time, and depending on soil type. So in PA, I don't know, Andrew, what's your soil like in Michigan?
Heavy?
Heavy?
Sandy loam.
Okay. So PA, we're a heavier clay. So a heavier clay is going to give you a longer feed just because of the cation exchange or the amount of nutrients a soil can hold. Whereas a sandy loam is probably going to hold a little less.
Sure.
So, but I would say on quick release, you're still going to get anywhere, like I said, from 3 to 6 weeks. I mean, we've done studies where we've even seen some last up to 8, which is pretty incredible. So, slow release is good for that summertime if you're looking for kind of an even keel. If you're trying to do fewer apps, you definitely want more of your fertilizer to contain slow release. That's important, but also making sure you have a good amount. So if it's going to be 70%, anywhere from 60 to 70%, make sure it's going to last what you want it to. So 3 months, 4 months, because if you're already going back every 4 to 6 weeks, the quick release is going to last you that long. It's not really necessarily needed. And if you're in a drought situation, depending on what type it is, if it's a polymer coat, that relies on water. So if it's been bone dry, none of that's releasing. And that's something to also keep in mind when you do granular applications is you need soil water to be able for the nutrients to be taken up by the plant. Just because you put it out when it's dry does not mean that it's going to be taken up. And that's where we talk about sources. Urea typically has there's something called critical relative humidity. So that means there gets to a certain point of the moisture in the air that the urea fertilizer will start to take in water. It's a lot higher than, say, a source like ammonium nitrate, like our 22012, NK Green, Turf Royale products. So they'll start to dissolve with less water. So there'll be more plant available. And I tend to be leaning more toward quick release because I want my plant to be able to have access to what I want right away and then be able to manage that. Again, if you're doing a DIY and you're mowing at a 1/2 inch, you're probably going to be fertilizing biweekly, maybe even weekly, in all honesty. So, but if you're looking to just have a high cut, lawn, 3.5 to 4 inch turf, yeah, you can put out a larger amount and come back, like I said, 4 or 6 weeks later and do that. So it's all about coverage too. So it's not necessarily the number on the bag. It's how many prills. We go back to what's in the bag. So if I have a fertilizer that has the same analysis, let's say it's, again, I don't know if this exists where you are, but let's say it's a 2005 and it's derived from urea, muriate of potash, and a little bit of slow. To make up 50 pounds in the bag, they have to put in that limestone filler or rock to make it weigh 50 pounds. Whereas if you took a homogeneous material, if there was a homogeneous material that was a 2005 somewhere, every single prill in that bag is going to contain nutrients in it. So you're going to get a lot better feeding when you do that. So another question maybe you guys get as DIYers is, why does foliar application sometimes work, it seems, quicker or better than a granular? And if you think about it, a liquid application is technically a homogeneous material because every single grass blade is getting a little bit of nitrogen. So a little bit is better than a large plop of fertilizer here, a large plop over there. It's all about distribution when it comes to granular.
That's good stuff. Now you mentioned NK Green, you mentioned Turf Royale, and the Mitas. I'm very familiar with that. I've used it last year. I used NK Green this year, and it's phenomenal. I really like it. And you mentioned the homogeneous point, and like the different colors and the prettiness and stuff. There's something about your fertilizers. They're just like a pearl. Each granule is like a little white pearl, and it's pretty. It just looks pure.
Yeah.
So it's like you're just getting the purest form of nutrients for your lawn. And now some of it can be melted down, which is a process of running water over it and then spraying it. So again, you're going to increase your distribution that way, like you were saying on the plant blade. But Just if you guys aren't familiar with their fertilizers, it's just a really nice white fertilizer. Can you go into a little bit of detail on Yara and their fertilizers?
Yeah, so I'd love to. So actually, Yara is the first. We are the people to first make synthetic fertilizer. So we are the founders of synthetic fertilizer. So over 100 years ago, during a European famine, two scientists from Norway decided they found a way to extract nitrogen from the air via electrohydrolysis. So they would take these they would use the waterfalls to power these hydroelectric machines and under high temperatures and actually break the triple bond of nitrogen in the air and make calcium nitrate. So calcium nitrate was the first synthetic fertilizer ever made.
No big deal.
No big deal. Just here saving lives. And actually, we have a presentation, and there's a graph of innovations that save the most lives globally. And I always ask, like the slide before it, I ask, what do you think is the most life-saving innovation? And it'll be penicillin, malaria, chlorinated water, and mineral fertilizer. And most would say, and even myself, penicillin or some sort of vaccine or, safe water. Actually, mineral fertilizer has saved the most lives globally for whatever period of time, over 1 billion lives, because of reduction in famine.
Huh.
So, you think about 100 years ago, there was no synthetic fertilizer. It was all animal manure and release from the soil. And again, that's a live, living thing. So if it's not active or if it's dry, you're not going to have any growth. So, we I believe there was a statistic where almost 90% of the world's calcium nitrate comes from Norway. So it's
Wow.
it's pretty astronomical number. And it's also, so we're very big on being nature positive as well. So fertilizer production kind of gets thrown into, or not kind of, it is thrown into one of those necessary evils in terms of emissions, and it does have a lot of greenhouse gases, whereas our calcium nitrate is actually globally the lowest carbon footprint made fertilizer. So we have perfected a process to make it as low as physically possible. And actually, a couple months ago, we just signed a agreement with the country of Norway, and we are capturing any CO2 that would be pumped in, or that would be released into the air, and actually containing it and putting it on the continental shelf so it doesn't get released to the atmosphere. So we're very big on being conscientious about the environment and, being stewards of the environment. And and making sure that you're putting the right fertilizer at the right time in the right place at the right rate. We don't want excess being wastefully used. But Turf Royale, NK Green, that's homogeneous ammonium nitrate. So we're one of the few people who manufacture ammonium nitrate in homogeneous materials like that. And we're worldwide known for our homogeneous complete NPKs like Turf Royale. And if you go on the website, if you look at Yara US, and even when I worked here, I'm like, we only have 4 or 5 SKUs. And they laugh. They're like, no, like you have to go to each country and then sign in. So I went down a rabbit hole one evening, and I was like, all right, I got to stop. It's 11:30. I'm gonna stop looking. But it's so vast. And prior to coming here, you don't really know how large and where Yara is. So if you go to Home Depot, for example, those plant shakers, the ones that say Osmocote, that's actually our material. If you buy a bag of Miracle Grow, the little NPK that's in there,
those little white things,
that's Yara.
What about DEF?
DEF, we are the world's largest producer of DEF fuel, which is a wild stat. So if you're at a gas station, very high likelihood that jug that you see is from us.
Huh. And there's that new trend of people putting that on their lawn.
People are using that in their lawns.
That sounds like Tide Pod, the Tide Pod trend. Don't be doing it.
Just don't do it.
It's a TikTok trend. Oh no.
Yeah, just don't do it. But yeah, so we're we're specialized in that, and we do a really great job on the MPKs, and we have a foliar line as well. So there's a lot of things that we do without people really knowing who we are. So you hear yard and you're like, oh, I don't know who that is, and you look who it is, you're like, oh wow, they're everywhere.
Right.
So
That's pretty cool. So putting together all this knowledge from nitrogen and fertilizers, is there a way that we can apply it into developing a lawn care program? Or what are some things that we can consider when developing a plan when it comes to fertilizers?
yeah, I think that's a really good question, and that's something, the listeners here have to ask themselves, what am I looking to achieve? How many apps am I making? And something I took I took an arbor class, like 101, like very basic, in college. And as a turf grass manager, you were always taught to hate trees, and the only pruning we did was a one prune at the base with a chainsaw, and that was it. But one thing he said that resonated with me, and I still remember it, and even it, equates to lawn, is he used to say, he said, I can make a $10 tree look great in a $100 hole, but I can't make a $100 tree look good in a $10 hole. So essentially what's that mean is the soil, right? So everything's built from the soil up. So I could do all the proper nutrition, but if my soil stinks and it's not balanced, or the pH is way off, or I have a deficiency in phosphorus, your inputs don't matter. So taking care of your soil, making sure you have a good, healthy soil. If you're compacted, if you can barely get a screwdriver into the ground, it's probably super compacted. You're going to have to aerate it numerous times to loosen that up. So starting with your soils, figuring out what you need, and then developing a solid nutrition plan. So nutrition is important. You wouldn't just, take a multivitamin and say, okay, I'm not going to eat 3 meals a day or however many meals. I'm just going to take my everyday men's and that's it. I'm going to rely what's in the soil. And that's another misconception too, is what's in the soil means that's what I have. It's kind of a snapshot in time when you're doing soil tests. And it's, again, relating it to something kind of understandable or monetary. Think of it as your 401k, right? Like, I can see what's in there, but I don't have access to all of it. I only get dribs and drabs of it. So making sure that you have plant available nutrition is important. So I would say if you're doing a cool season lawn, I would say anywhere from 3 to 4 pounds of nitrogen. And nitrogen is important. There's a reason why it's the first nutrient on a bag. It's needed in the greatest quantity, but also when to apply it at the right times, not excessive during times of potential disease. So making sure you're timing that right. So there's more than one way to skin the proverbial cat when it comes to lawn care. So it's kind of difficult to put everything into one box, but I would say start out for, what's your budget? How many times can you make applications? How many do I want to do? How intense do I want to be? Do I want to be dedicated and make every biweekly? Am I going to have a really low cut turf? Well, then you're going to need also the proper equipment. It's going to be hard to get less than an inch on a rotary mower. So you're going to have to buy proper equipment. And that plays a huge part of it too. If you're not doing those cultural practices well, nutrition, I mean, it'll help with that, but it's not the be all end all. If you're scalping it way too low than you should, and you're not watering it, it's bone dry. Those are things that you kind of want to be aware of. But I would say a good nutritional program, start there, and then start with your soils, and then build a solid nutrition program from there. And hopefully maybe I'll get another invite back, and then we can talk about other nutrients, or maybe go into depth on what you're looking for in terms of programs. But yeah, there's no right or wrong one way. It's just, I would say put nutrition at the top. Don't put herbicides or fungicides. They're important, but same thing. You wouldn't just take an antibiotic and expect to still feel healthy, or any type of medicine, without eating.
Right.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And then other components of like lawn irrigation and watering and stuff, which we have other episodes on watering recommendations and how often you should be watering your lawn. So go back and take a look at those. Know your square footage of your lawn and stuff like that.
I will interrupt and say proper calibration. That's I think you mentioned before. That's very important. Making sure you're properly calibrated, and because that can make or break. I listened to the episode, right, the one we had with New Form and Mike Mulchin, and I know Mike, and I had applied last year. Again, it was very dry, and I thought my backpack was calibrated to a certain amount. I went at the high rate of 16 ounces an acre when actually I was calibrated for 32 ounces an acre. So, yeah, you want to talk about some very dormant, non-growing grass in a dry spring with a 2x the rate of a new. I've done it, and as you said, there are no losses, just learning experiences, moments with a W. So yeah, you don't learn by doing things correctly; you learn by messing them up. But that's the fun of it, and that's why I think that's the draw for DIY and just lawn care in general. Is what can I do differently, or what happens when I mix these two together? What kind of response am I going to get? Or oh, wow, that worked really well, or oh gosh, I'm not doing that again.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of all that, so Nick lives near me. Nick and I had a chance to get together and meet up, and he actually came over to my house and looked at my lawn and stuff. And we were talking about like calcium and nutrients and stuff like that. I know that's not nitrogen, but or when's a good time to be applying that, or when isn't a good time to be applying calcium? Because there's some good calcium products out there.
There are, and it's calcium's a tricky one in terms of soils. Again, a lot of soils are going to read that it's ample calcium, but calcium, the only available calcium is the calcium solution and what the plant can pull up. When you actually do a soil test, you take from several different areas and pools that are in the soil, so it'll give you a quote unquote false reading. So just because you have calcium doesn't mean the plant's actually taking it up. Now, calcium is important for soil structure. So if your pH is low, again, if you're trying to grow bluegrass and your pH is 5.5, definitely lime as soon as you can. There really is no bad time to lime if you're in that scenario. But if your pH is low, that would be a good one. But if you're looking for plant available calcium, again, calcium nitrate is going to be a really great source. That would be our Tropicoat, our granular version. And it works really well because, going off on another little tangent here, so calcium is positively charged on the periodic table. And if you look at nitrate, NO3, it's negative charged. And the plant has to balance each other out. So it takes in a positive and a negative. So that calcium will hitch a ride into the attached to the nitrate molecule and actually go in via that way. So it's a much more effective way to get calcium into your plant. And calcium is very crucial for cell wall structure, summer drought tolerance. So it plays a vital role in any plant health, but that would be a source. But if you're doing for lime for soil structure, if your pH is low, if your magnesium is high, so if you have a very high magnesium, you would actually want to, that can potentially clog your soils if you have high magnesium levels. So you'd want to actually knock that off the soil CEC, and you could do that via gypsum. Gypsum provides calcium, but also does not raise your pH because of the sulfate portion of it.
So you're saying you can apply liquid calcium even only when your pH is low? Or?
No. So I would say the way calcium also works is it's immobile in the plant. So if you apply calcium foliarly on turf grass, it doesn't translocate anywhere. And calcium is most needed in the roots. So if you're going to apply a foliar calcium, make sure you water it in right afterwards. Otherwise, I would stick with a granular version. So the root, most of the calcium uptake via plant happens within the first 1 or 2 inches of a root. And actually, it's more crucial for new seedlings. Older roots will actually seal off to an extent, and the calcium doesn't travel very far. Whereas those newer roots, it'll travel in there and get into the plant. So it's crucial for new rooting and establishment. And that nitrate helps as well with the rooting because it helps produce more finer roots. Whereas your ammoniacal sources like ammonium sulfate, urea, tend to have like thicker, stubbier roots, less of them. So the more roots, think of the more finer roots, the more area you have to kind of mine your soil and to grab nutrients.
The more you know.
Knowledge. Our tagline at Yara is knowledge grows, and we love to share knowledge.
It's the mo you know.
It's the mo you know.
You know.
I like it.
All right, Nick. Well, we greatly appreciate you coming on and chatting with us tonight about fertilizers. Where can people find Yara products?
There's a few distributors. I would say probably online would be your best bet. If you go on the website, there's someone, depending on where you are in the region of the country, you can reach out to somebody and they'll guide you in the correct area or close to it to grab product. But online, there's some online stores as well that have it. But if you just go on the Yara North America and you're looking for like turf, there should be a region. It should have a directory on who to call and what region that is. So if you go on the website and you're in the Northeast, you can certainly find my contact information there, and I'll be happy to guide you where you need be. But if not, I'm not very hip, as you would say, with social media, but my counterpart, Brian Grill, Turf Beard, give him a follow. He's a wealth of knowledge. And he is also a sales agronomist in the Southeast. So if you're in that region, hit up Brian.
Yeah.
I forgot about him.
Deal. Yeah. Well, we're going to hit some Motai mailbags, but I won't keep you any longer here tonight, Nick. So thank you again for joining us, and we definitely will have to have you back on.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's been great talking with you guys, and look forward to our next time.
Thanks a lot,
All
Nick.
right. Well, that was some good stuff with Nick from Yara, but do you guys know what time it is?
It's time for the Motown mailbag.
Join us as we reach deep into the mailbag and answer your questions. If you would like to have a question answered on the Lawn Feed podcast, head to thelawnfeed.com and submit a question.
Mailbag, mailbag. It's time for the Motown mailbag.
All right, let's
Slaps.
dig deep into this mailbag. That does slap. That's a good song. I don't care who you are. This first one is from Nolan S. in Newark, Ohio. He said, I'm looking for some help and advice for my lawn. We moved to a new house last summer. It was built 2 years ago and sat vacant for a year. The new sod they laid was not taken care of properly, and I have a ton of dead grass and gaps in between pieces of sod. I'm someone who takes pride in my lawn, so it's killing me to see it this way and how many weeds are coming up. I'm thinking about mowing it low, aerating, putting down sand to help level, then seed and top dress. Is that the right process? Also, any insights on certain types, brands of products to use? Thanks in advance.
That's a good question. That sucks.
It does suck. Because sod's not like a cheap thing,
No.
That's a real bummer. What do you think?
I feel like we see a lot of that too.
Right.
So if I'm just looking at the sod aspect and the bumpy aspect of it, that I would just do screen topsoil and basically treat it like a full renovation. If you're looking to mow it low, where was that? Mowing it low. Yeah. So I don't know if that's mowing it low or just meaning scalping the lawn.
I think kind of just cutting low to do all that stuff.
Yeah. So you're right there. Scalp it as low as you can without getting those blades into the dirt. Grab screen topsoil, throw that down, smooth it out. And I wouldn't do sand just because you're going to want to fill in those gaps with something with more longer lasting effects.
You can mix some sand
and
in with the
nutrients
topsoil
and stuff. Yeah. Again, if I'm not sure what your soil is like in Ohio, if it is a sandy mixture, then yeah, you can do some 50-50 or something. But if it's more of a clay, which I'm probably pretty sure it is. Just do your screen topsoil. Make sure you screen it too. So yes, scalp it, aerate it real heavy, especially if you're going to be putting something new into it. Level it with your topsoil, and then as far as tools, I have a reel that I recently did. Actually, I have a 4-part mini series on leveling, and I talk about different tools. This is on my channel in Rooted Lawn Co. on the YouTube. So if you go there, it just tells you all the steps you need to do for this process. Landsy has leveling rakes, poly rollers, all those things that you can use. Also, if you're doing this in the spring, you might be cutting it pretty close to being able to seed right now. But good thing for you, as we mentioned earlier, Twin City Seed does have a sale going on starting Monday, I believe. Monday, I forget what day it is.
It'll
but
be
basically
after
they
the
have
release of this. So.
Yeah, they have a Father's Day sale going on, so 15% off. Grab yourself some really good grass seed from there. If you're looking for something that's going to look great all year round, durable, sun, shade, Tough Turf is an all-over phenomenal blend. If you'd like tall fescue with a little bit of bluegrass, Blue Resilience is really good. Take a look at theirs and take a look at their site, and there's a lot of really good blends on there. Any other types of brand of products? So Twin City Seed, I told you Landsy. Andrew, what do you think?
Well, you just learned about some fertilizers, so
yeah, we
take
just learned about
that
some
knowledge and do
fertilizers.
what you will with it. A lot of good fertilizers out there, but you can explore Yara if you'd like, or just take the knowledge you learned from them and apply it. But I think that pretty much covers that one.
Soil test maybe too. Soil
Yeah,
test.
while you're at
there.
it, I mean, if you've been applying fertilizers and stuff, just know that that's going to skew your results. So, but
at least this is a good time to get the pH right.
Right. Yeah, a good point. That's not going to change that. So, yeah. All right. Second question comes from Tony N. in East Gull Lake, Minnesota. Subject is new lawn. Advice needed. Long story short, I have had a difficult 3 years with my new lawn. We built a new home and ended up seeding our natural soil with a mix of tall fescue, fine fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, and perennial rye. The tall fescue seems to be the dominant turf in the yard. After struggling to keep the yard healthy the first 2 seasons, I found you guys over the winter, and I have been trying to prepare for spring since tuning in. Our natural soil is a thick clay, a yard, and was very compacted last year. I ended up using liquid aeration, and that seemed to make the biggest difference so far. However, I still feel the soil is having a very hard time retaining nutrients. This struck me in the spring when I did a soil test and found that the nutrient levels to be extremely low. This is likely why the clover has been kicking my turf's butt the last year. I believe the best action now would be to apply a compost or compost soil mix to the top of the lawn to improve microbes and nutrient retention. I believe this could also help level the yard. Do you agree? This would be a good next step. Would you also recommend additional soil amendments such as Anderson's Humic DG or C20? Or would it be best just to use some compost around the yard and then do another soil test before the next steps? The yard is about 30,000 square feet, so that's a big undertaking. Yes, indeed it is. Any advice you can give to go about this process would be greatly appreciated. I'm frustrated it took so long to realize that the soil is likely the biggest issue, and I'm hopeful for some good advice and hard work, and I can improve the yard. You guys rock, and thanks again. Yeah, 30,000 square feet. That's a lot to tackle there.
So there's a lot to this. For time's sake, we'll just kind of pick a couple spots from it. New construction lawns. I'm dealing with one of those right now. It could take 2 to 3 years for you to actually improve, because basically they're taking all your good soil out of there and leaving you with junk. So it could take several years to actually grow your lawn into a nice lawn just from new construction standpoint. It's compact. There's a lot of clay. A lot of equipment was on it. So one of the other questions I had was maybe we should check your pH, what your pH is doing, and trying to make adjustments to that.
Which he did do a soil test. He said it was extremely low in nutrients after he did one.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
check that
Hard
soil
time
test for the
retaining
pH.
nutrients. Yeah, I'd be interested to see if the pH needs adjusted too. And like Nick was saying, if you need some sulfur and some quicker release or more available nutrients, you can always do some of the nitrogen sources he was mentioning. Let's see here. Clover is simple. Just treat that with a herbicide, and as your turf begins to thicken up, it'll start to keep that pressure down as well. The process with this, I would fix the pH. I would aerate. I'd top dress with a soil compost mix. If you're looking to improve your composition of your soil, again, Andrew, did he say it was compact? I'm just kind of assuming
yes.
that it is.
Yeah, he said very compacted last year.
Okay. So yeah, I'd do a super heavy aeration over this. Go over it several times, remove those cores, because you don't want those just going back into your lawn. I would top dress or level with a good amount of like a soil compost mix, like a 50-50. That's going to help improve your soil composition. It's going to give you those microbes, those nutrients that you want in there as well. That's going to be a great next step. Then plant good grass seed. You're going through this trouble right now. I recommended Tough Turf from Twin Cities Seed before. That is just a great blend of perennial ryegrass, Kentucky bluegrass, and tall fescue. And tall fescue does seem to do better in clay soils as well. So that would make sense why your fescue might be seeming like it takes over. But that Tough Turf is phenomenal. So I think you'll like that. So I think if you started that process, I know you might have to deal with it again through the summer here because Chris is just starting to do some renovations now. But I think unless you're gung ho and you can do 30,000 square feet, or just maybe do a section up around the house.
Yeah.
Do it by section by section.
Try to correct a small area, see if what you're doing is working. I guess a little test plot.
Yeah. I'd wait till late summer, early fall, and start fresh by those steps there.
But you can start correcting the pH now if that's something that's out of whack. He also asked about humic products. Do you think that's beneficial, or do you think just start with the compost soil blend after heavy aeration and see how that does?
There's a product from Site One called Carbon Pro G. It's a soil optimizer. That stuff is really, really good. You can do like 2 applications of that a month. It is a little expensive. So maybe you can start like a contractor account there and get a little bit better discount there. But Carbon Pro G is a great one. Humic from Anderson's. If you're already going to be fertilizing, sure, go ahead. I like to apply humic monthly as well. I believe it's doing something for your lawn and your soil composition. So Simple Lawn Solutions has some good liquid products as well. It definitely wouldn't hurt. So, yep.
All right. Question number 3 comes from Mike B. in Montreal, Canada. And he says, birds are the worst.
Bird is the word.
Bird is the word. Hey, guys, love the podcast. Need more frequent episodes. Yeah, that sounds
Noted.
That sounds like a lot of work. No, that's the goal, hopefully, eventually. Anyways, I moved into my first home just over a year ago, and this is my second season working on the lawn. I have about 2,500 square feet of lawn, and I'm planning on fall leveling an overseed project in Montreal, Canada. I've lined up most of the materials and equipment, but I'm still unsure of a few details of the process. The previous owner took great care of the lawn, and I already have the best lawn on the street, which is the envy of the neighbors. I have very little weed pressure, although I battle clover, creeping Charlie, and some mushrooms growing during the warm season. We have limited herbicides in Canada. I don't know what grass types I have, although I'm nearly certain it's a mix of all cool season grass types. The spring, I tried to fill in a few patchy areas with some basic Scott seed, knowing I'd need to do fall renovations, and the birds ate all of it up before it could germinate. I have a very bumpy lawn, so I plan to level and overseed with turf-type tall fescue blend from Twin Cities Seed. Here are my 2 questions. I've tracked down a source of topsoil, and I've decided on a 35 sand, and 65% soil mixture, adding about a half inch to 1 inch throughout. The provider recommended I go with black earth only soil. He said it can be mixed with compost at a half inch thick. What's your opinion on the matter? Huh? Matter? I like that. I'm worried I won't get the stability throughout the frost thaw cycles with black earth only year after year, and I don't feel like repeating the process annually. I also heard from your last episode to be careful with tall fescue, adding too much topsoil, not to smother the crown of the plant. Although right now my lawn is not exclusively tall fescue, but I'll keep that in mind. Question number 2, how do I prevent the birds from eating the newly planted grass seed? Should I place the seed after I core aerate and before the topsoil? Should I seed before topsoil and again after? Should I seed after? Basically, when should I seed in that process? And should I cover it with peat moss? I don't want to use blankets. I don't even want to go there. I will rent a lawn roller and push it into the soil, but I fear that's not enough protection. I don't feel like going through this process after it gets ruined by birds. Please help.
So very bumpy lawn, and you're going to seed. You answered your question about smothering the tall fescue that's already there. Just like the normal process of, mowing it down low, bringing in topsoil. If you're already planning on seeding, the turf that you're going to damage during this, it's going to pay off because you're going to be putting in that new seed. So yeah, you ideally you don't want to smother tall fescue. Tall fescue is very hard to level with the clumping and the crowns and everything. So you generally don't go very thick on that. In this instance, if you aerated and leveled it in a thicker, enough to keep it nice and smooth to your satisfaction, I think you'd be fine because you're going to be seeding that. Now, as far as preventing the birds, I never had issues with birds. I never had issues at all. My suggestion to you would be, as you seed this, you can come back and you can, it's 2,500 square feet. You can rake it in. That way you're getting the seed down like an eighth of an inch for your good seed soil contact. Then you can take a roller over it with like a poly roller that's lighter, just to continue to tamp it down just a little bit, which should not make it as vulnerable to those Canadian birds or the geese, Canadian geese. So I would do that as well. And then watering it, you can maybe put some scarecrow type thing, like an owl out in your yard, like a dog statue or something that might, warn them off as well. So
I don't know if they have any motion activated sprinklers. We use them for deer around here. They get into gardens and flowers and stuff. You can set up one of those. I don't know if that'll activate with a number of birds flying around and getting in there, but something to try too, I guess. You don't want to explore the blankets, so straw, and they make other blankets too, just for other people that are aware.
Yeah.
Question number 4. Our final question comes from Jamie B. in Spokane Valley, Washington, and the subject is seed mixtures. I live in the Pacific Northwest where summers get into the hundreds and winters bring lots of snow. I did a full renovation in spring 2023, laid down a mix of KBG and fescues, not from Twin City Seed. Since then, I have found your podcast and I have overseeded with Resilience 2 last fall and second time with Blue Resilience this spring. I'm thinking about using a shady mix from Twin Cities Seed this fall, as my backyard does not get much sun and is still thin in some areas. My question is it better to use a variety of different mixtures, a different blend each year, or stick with one blend of seed? I think like what he's doing is kind of figuring out on his own, right? Like he's find what works. Just because you have a lawn doesn't mean the same grass types and mixtures are going to work in every part of that lawn. If your backyard is thin in those areas after you've already overseeded with all these other mixtures, then yes, I think exploring like a shady mix might be absolutely necessary. And just know that, that's just kind of a different area of your lawn and you need to treat it that way. I don't think you should have to mix up your blends every single year. I think if you find something that works for that area, stick with it, and try to thicken it up year after year with overseeds or whatever, and hopefully you'll figure out what's going to grow there, and then you can just keep pounding it with that year after year if you choose to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think overall it's going to be best once you find that blend that keeps it nice and thick and you're happy with the color. Stick with it. Shady mix from Twin City Seed would be great. Tough Turf. This is a third recommendation for Tough Turf. Tough Turf is an awesome blend for your lawn as well.
I'm going to get you a t-shirt, Vince, that says Tough Turf on it.
Big Tough Turf guy.
Tough Turf guy.
I did a renovation last spring. It was for a wedding, and half of it was full sun, half of it was literally like shade all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a little longer to germinate in the shade, but they had a wedding, and it looks phenomenal now. So
it's a great mix, especially for bare soils and like new renovations.
Also, you mentioned that it's thin, so I would again think of how much you're fertilizing it, how often you're watering it, some of the other components that go along with not just because it's shaded.
Is it drying out? Is it constantly too wet, or is there fungus issues that have taken over and caused damage? So things to consider too. But try out that shady mix and see how that goes. And if it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So
those are good questions. Keep them coming, guys. We like to hear from you guys. We'd like to let you test us and pick our brain here once in a while, and try and the ultimate goal is helping you guys learn, helping us grow, and helping you grow in your lawns and your lawn journey. And on behalf of the entire Lawn Feed, we thank you so much for joining another great episode. Make sure you elevate your lawn apparel with a new Mow Time t-shirt or Big Grass Guy t-shirt, considering the sale at Twin City Seed. So head over to lawnfeed.com, and is that the right email or right website?
The lawnfeed.com?
Yeah.
Head to the lawnfeed.com and use code BRAD15.
Head over to lawnfeed.com and use code BRAD15 at checkout, and that's going to get you a whopping 15% off your entire order. Stay safe out there, guys. Enjoy your lawn, enjoy your family, and we'll catch you in the next one. Andrew, roll that Mow Time tape.
Oh, geez. I can't. I already disconnected everything.
Okay. From Andrew and I, have a good evening, night, day. See you next time.
I'll play through the phone. No,
you missed a mark. Just say bye.
Bye.